There's a reason why, even after all this time, even through the quiet, and despite the choices you've already made, that one person still lingers in your thoughts, like a faint echo that refuses to fade. You may have done everything you could to move on, changed your surroundings, filled your days with distractions, even told yourself the chapter was closed. And yet, they show up. In your dreams. In old memories. In the lyrics of songs. In the casual words of strangers who have no idea what they've stirred within you. Why do they still have that hold on you? Why does their presence persist, even when they're no longer part of your daily life? Carl Jung wouldn't have brushed it off as simple attachment or emotional dependence. To him, the unconscious holds its own logic, one that the conscious mind hasn't caught up with yet. When someone stays rooted in your inner world, it doesn't automatically mean you're meant to go back to them. It doesn't even mean the love is still alive. More often, it means there's something inside you, some hidden truth or unresolved feeling, that's asking to be seen, understood, or finally healed. And that person? They were the mirror that helped bring it to the surface. Carl Jung believed that the people who enter our lives, especially the ones who leave behind an emotional trace, don't show up by accident. He taught that relationships serve a deeper, psychological purpose. Every person acts as a mirror, revealing something within us that we haven't yet fully seen or understood. That lingering presence in your mind might have little to do with who that person truly was, and everything to do with what they symbolized. Maybe they stirred up an old wound, matched an unconscious image shaped in your childhood, or awakened something deep within you that still hasn't fully surfaced. So, when someone occupies your thoughts long after they're gone, it doesn't necessarily mean you're holding on to a lost love. It may simply mean that the inner work remains unfinished. You see, the mind tends to repeat what it hasn't yet processed. It loops those memories not to torture you, but to make sense of them. It replays them as a way to heal. And until that lesson is fully embraced, the same emotional patterns will keep showing up, over and over. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." But here's the shift. Instead of resisting those thoughts or trying to bury them, what if you got curious? Not in a nostalgic way. Not out of longing. But with genuine interest. What part of you did that person awaken? What hidden emotions rose to the surface when they entered your world? What wounds did they touch that you'd long forgotten were even there? Because here's the truth. When someone won't leave your mind, it's not them asking for your attention. It's your soul. That person didn't just come and go. They illuminated something inside you. A part of yourself that may have remained hidden until that connection brought it to light. And if your mind keeps circling back, it's often because something within you still feels unfinished. But here's the key. That unresolved piece doesn't live in them. It lives in you. This is where real inner work begins. It's not about forcefully cutting emotional ties or pretending the connection never happened. It's about being brave enough to face the emotional imprint they left behind, because the more you try to outrun it, the more it will follow you. This isn't about romanticizing the past or clinging to something that's long gone. It's about realizing that your unconscious is still holding on to that bond for a reason. Jung taught that when an emotional experience isn't fully processed, it doesn't just vanish. It becomes a kind of energetic knot in your psyche. And that knot quietly shapes how you make decisions, how you approach love, and even how you see yourself. So when thoughts of that person resurface, it's not just weakness or nostalgia. It's your inner world asking for resolution, not through rejection or denial, but through understanding, through compassion. And no, you're not crazy for still thinking about them. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're simply human, beautifully human, navigating the sacred process of healing. What you're going through is one of the most profound journeys a soul can take, the integration of an emotional experience that changed you at your core. So please, don't be hard on yourself for feeling it deeply. Instead of self-blame, Try to feel gratitude. Your mind isn't betraying you. It's gently pointing to what still needs your love, your attention, your healing. We often think it's love that keeps us tied to someone, but love isn't always what holds us in place. Sometimes, it's something else, an unresolved feeling, an unmet need that lived in the shadows, or a projection we placed on them without even knowing. As Carl Jung said, we don't love with just our hearts, we love with our whole psyche. And in that psyche live our hidden stories, suppressed emotions, forgotten fears, and powerful symbols, all working quietly behind the scenes, leading us toward the lessons we're here to learn. So if you still catch yourself thinking about that person, don't rush to call it love. It might not be love at all. It might be a psychic echo, a resonance from the depths of your being, calling you inward, asking you to look just a little closer. There was something in them that stirred something deep within you. A spark, a recognition, a response that still hasn't found its place inside you. When you can't stop thinking about someone, it might not be about the person themselves. It could be the sign of an activated archetype within your psyche. Maybe they seemed like a savior, or an ideal. Maybe they felt like a safe emotional haven, or perhaps they were a shadow in disguise, appearing as light. Carl Jung taught that within the collective unconscious, the deep reservoir shared by all humans, live universal symbols and images called archetypes. These aren't just abstract ideas. They live inside us. They shape how we feel, how we see others, and how we make sense of our experiences, often without us even realizing it. And when someone awakens one of these archetypes inside us, the impact can be incredibly powerful. So much so that even after they leave, the feeling of something missing remains, like an unfinished sentence or a melody that never resolved. But that lingering absence doesn't always mean the person was unique or irreplaceable. It often means the symbol they represented hasn't yet been fully understood or integrated. So that ongoing thought, that quiet but constant presence in your mind, it's likely not about them at all. It's about you. It's your soul searching for clarity, for meaning, for closure. But the closure you're searching for isn't with them. It's with yourself. It's your unconscious calling you back to that turning point, that exact moment when something inside you shifted. Not so you can stay trapped in the past, but so you can reclaim the parts of yourself you gave away, often without even realizing it. Maybe you gave too much in the name of love. Maybe you quieted your voice to keep the peace, bent your boundaries to fit into their life, or buried your own needs just to hold the connection together. And even though they're no longer here, the echoes of that self-abandonment still linger in your heart. Each time your mind drifts to them, it may not be longing for the relationship at all. It may be your deeper self trying to retrieve what was once left behind. It's saying, look here. This is where you made an unspoken trade. This is where you stopped being fully you. You don't necessarily want to go back to that person. What you truly want, what your soul longs for, is to return to yourself. To come home to the wholeness you once set aside. And this, as Carl Jung taught, is where true spiritual work begins, in retrieving the parts of ourselves we lost along the way, even when we lost them in the name of love. Especially when love meant forgetting who we were. Thinking about someone isn't always about missing them. Sometimes, it's your soul hesitating at the edge of growth, holding on, not out of love, but out of resistance. Because growth demands that we accept a hard truth, that no matter how beautiful or meaningful that story once was, it has already served its purpose. And this is where the real struggle begins, between the mind and the soul. Between what you know and what you feel. Your conscious mind may be ready to let go. It understands that the chapter is closed. But your unconscious isn't done yet. It's not interested in forgetting. It wants to understand, to integrate, to take the pain and shape it into something meaningful, to turn the wound into wisdom. And that kind of transformation doesn't come from distraction. It doesn't come from forcing yourself to move on. It comes from being fully present, present enough to listen, to feel, and to finally make peace with what was. What's really needed now isn't more avoidance or distraction, but a clear, compassionate look at what truly happened. What did that relationship reveal about you? Which parts of you came alive, blossomed, and thrived? And which parts slowly faded away? Who did you really fall in love with? The person as they were, or the version of them your heart needed to believe in? These aren't just passing thoughts. They're doorways. Each question is a key to inner doors that have stayed closed since the moment it all unraveled. Your soul understands something your conscious mind may struggle with, that thinking about this person isn't a sign of failure. It's a signal. A quiet but powerful call, a call to awaken. And the more gently and honestly you allow yourself to respond to that call, without shame, without judgment, the closer you move to real closure. Not the kind that needs a final conversation, a reconciliation, or validation from the outside world, but the kind that arises from deep within, the kind that comes from radical acceptance. The story played its part. It gave you what it came to give. Now, the path forward is about finding your way back to yourself. When Carl Jung spoke of individuation, this is exactly what he meant: the sacred journey of becoming whole again, of reclaiming your truth. Every deep connection, every love, every loss, every relationship that carved its mark into your soul, is part of the larger journey of becoming. Not to label who you are, but to help refine and reveal you. It's as if every person you've ever truly loved served as a mirror, reflecting parts of you that were still hidden, still waiting to be seen. And when you find yourself thinking about that person, what you're really seeing isn't just them. It's you, lit up in a new and unfamiliar way. Because some bonds don't break with distance. Some people don't need to be physically near to continue shaping your inner world. They can still move your emotions, influence your thoughts, and steer your choices, even in their absence. That's the depth of a true psychological connection. It isn't defined by how often you see someone, but by the invisible imprint they leave behind. And according to Jung, that imprint isn't just leftover emotion. It's the echo of a profound resonance between your unconscious and the symbolic role that person played in your life. So no, you're not stuck in the past because you're weak. You're here because your soul still has something to say. Something it couldn't speak when the emotions were too loud, when you were still caught in the intensity of it all. Because when we're deep inside a relationship that reaches our core, clarity often slips away. Emotions blur our vision. Love can overwhelm our inner compass. But when the dust settles, when everything grows quiet, that's when real understanding can finally begin. Thinking about that person doesn't always mean you're slipping backward. In fact, it might be the beginning of something much deeper, the birth of a new awareness, a wave of wisdom that's been quietly waiting to rise within you. Carl Jung believed that the most powerful human encounters aren't accidents. They're not random. They're soul-level meetings, moments where two inner worlds recognize each other in ways far beyond what the conscious mind can fully grasp. And that's why, even when your rational mind says, "Move on," something deeper in you holds back. Something within you knows there's more to understand. There's a message hidden in that experience, a lesson encoded in the emotional imprint it left behind, still waiting to be uncovered. But here's the truth: that message isn't in the other person. It's not in their actions, their choices, or their absence. It's in you, in what that connection awakened, what it stirred to life inside you, and how it quietly reshaped your inner landscape. So often, we believe that if we could just understand them, why they acted that way, why they left, why they hurt us, we'd finally find peace. We chase their answers, hoping they'll unlock our healing. But the real closure? It was never in their hands. It begins and ends with what you're willing to see in yourself. Maybe they hurt you. Maybe they betrayed your trust, let you down, or disappeared without giving you the closure you longed for. And yes, that pain is real. But beyond the hurt, there's something deeper, a lesson your soul is still trying to absorb. And that kind of lesson doesn't come through logic or analysis. It comes through feeling, through the emotional energy that still lives inside you, waiting to be witnessed. What keeps resurfacing in your mind isn't the person, it's the emotional experience that was never fully processed. It's an inner process left unfinished, paused in time, asking to be seen, to be felt, and eventually to be released. Because more often than not, what we struggle to let go of isn't the person themselves. It's the version of ourselves that emerged in their presence. It's who you became while loving them. It's the side of you that came to life through that connection, the one you might not have fully understood, the one you're still questioning, still wondering. Was I worthy of love? And that is where the real healing begins. It's that tender, unguarded part of yourself, maybe a part you didn't even know existed, that felt unseen, rejected, or left behind. And because you never fully knew how to sit with that pain, how to process what it meant, your mind keeps circling back to it. It replays the memories. It overanalyzes. It relives. Not to punish you, but to find a way to make sense of it, to integrate it with compassion. You don't need more answers from the outside. What you truly need is permission. Permission to feel what you've been avoiding. Jung once said, "What you resist persists." And often, the thoughts that won't leave you alone are not the problem. They're just signposts. Signs that you've been resisting the emotions beneath them. So ask yourself gently, what did I truly feel during that time? What fear was so big, so heavy, that I chose to hide it? What part of me went silent, just to keep the connection alive? Because that is the root of the attachment you're still carrying. Not the person, not the past, but the part of yourself you muted along the way. Liberation doesn't come in one clean moment. It's not a straight line, and it's rarely immediate. True healing is a descent, a deep dive into the unlit places of your soul. And yes, it can hurt. But that ache you feel? That's the sign. It means something inside you is waking up. Something sacred. Maybe what you truly need right now isn't to stop thinking about that person. Maybe you just need to stop judging yourself for still thinking about them. Because as long as you keep fighting your own thoughts, you'll never get to the message they carry, the message your soul has been waiting for you to hear. That message your soul keeps circling back to, that's the key. The key to your healing, your growth, your transformation. Your unconscious isn't leading you back to a person. It's guiding you home, back to yourself. Back to that sacred place within where you feel whole, even without anyone else's validation. Where peace doesn't come from another's presence, but from your own understanding. Because once you truly grasp what that person symbolized, once you integrate the deeper meaning of their presence in your life, you no longer need them to be physically close in order to feel at peace. And that is freedom. Real freedom. The kind that lets you remember without hurting. The kind that allows you to let go without fear. The kind of love that exists without needing to possess. At some point, you may have tried to replace them. Maybe you searched for someone new to fill the emptiness they left behind. Or maybe, without even noticing, you started comparing every new connection to the one that came before, measuring, evaluating, hoping something would finally feel the same. But no matter how hard you try, something always seems off. As if nothing fits quite right. As if no new story hits the same emotional note. And that lingering feeling, that sense of absence, isn't because the person you lost was irreplaceable. The connection you had with them wasn't only human, it was symbolic. It touched something deep, something sacred. It awakened a part of you that had been sleeping, a part of yourself you had never truly met before. And now, the real journey isn't about finding them again. It's about finding you. Not through the arms of another, but through your own self-discovery. That's where true healing begins. That's where your power returns, not as something you gain from someone else, but as something you reclaim from within. That's where you find the version of yourself who doesn't just survive without them, but thrives. Carl Jung taught that every profound bond in our lives unlocks something hidden inside us, an inner dimension of the psyche that might have stayed dormant forever if not for that encounter. When you miss someone deeply, it's not just that you're longing for. You're yearning for you, the version of you that came alive in their presence. Maybe in that relationship you were more vulnerable, more open, more emotionally connected. Or maybe, just maybe, you gave too much, lost parts of yourself in the name of love, trying to hold on to something that was never meant to last. Either way, when you think of them now, you're really thinking of a part of yourself, a part that still needs your care, your compassion, your understanding. And that is the shift. That's what transforms memory into wisdom. Because your unconscious mind isn't trying to haunt you. It's trying to heal you. It's working tirelessly, beneath the surface, to bring you back into balance. To remind you that nothing was ever truly lost, only waiting to be remembered. Your unconscious is not your enemy. It doesn't want to keep you trapped in the past, or make you suffer endlessly. Quite the opposite. It's doing everything it can to guide you home. And it uses the tools it has, dreams, repetitive thoughts, sudden waves of emotion, not to torment you, but to point you toward wholeness. So if someone keeps showing up in your mind, it's not just about them. It's about the emotional story that's still unfinished within you. A story that can't be solved through logic alone, but through symbolism, through deeper understanding. Jung believed that healing isn't a linear, rational process. It's an alchemical one, a sacred transformation that happens deep within, often without words. And that kind of inner alchemy only begins when we're brave enough to face the unknown inside us and bring it into the light of awareness. But this process can't be rushed. It needs your stillness, your honesty, your willingness to sit with what you've lived, not with guilt, not with longing, but with gratitude. Gratitude not for the loss, but for the lesson. Because every soul that touches us, every bond that leaves a mark, also plants a seed of transformation. And even if all you feel right now is pain or confusion, underneath that ache lies something sacred, something essential to your awakening. The goal isn't to forget. The goal is to let go of the weight the memory still carries, so you can finally move forward, not with emptiness, but with wisdom. And that kind of release, that true healing, only becomes possible when you stop searching outside yourself for answers and begin turning inward. Not to blame yourself, but to take back your power. The power to understand why you held on so tightly, why you placed them on a pedestal, why the loss felt like it shattered something inside you. Carl Jung taught that the unconscious doesn't just store our memories, it holds them as living symbols. Symbols that quietly shape the way we see love, pain, and reality itself. Maybe this person, without even knowing it, was never meant to stay, but to awaken you. Maybe they were a mirror, reflecting a version of yourself that was ready to rise to the surface. And now, what you've called attachment might not be about them at all. It may just be a phase of your unfolding, a necessary part of your becoming. You don't need to push them out of your thoughts. You don't need to force anything away. Instead, ask yourself, what did they represent? What did they stir within you that's still echoing today? What unspoken promise, to yourself, still feels incomplete? Because only when you understand that can you finally turn the page without carrying the weight of unfinished business. This isn't about forgetting. It's about closing the chapter, not from your mind, but from your heart. And true closure, the kind that heals rather than hides, comes when you realize that real love doesn't always mean forever. Sometimes, real love means letting go. Sometimes, love doesn't come to stay. Sometimes, it enters our lives simply to reveal something, to awaken us, and then it leaves. And when we struggle to accept that truth, the soul becomes trapped in a quiet kind of waiting, a waiting that leads nowhere. Your mind isn't the problem. Your emotions aren't the problem. The real conflict begins when you try to force forgetting, without ever truly reaching understanding. And this is where Jung invites us to look deeper, to stop chasing solutions outside ourselves, and instead, sit down with that wounded part of us, the one that still longs to be heard, to be seen, to be validated. Because only then will the image of that person stop haunting your thoughts. Not because you erased them, but because they've given you everything they came to give. Because there's nothing left for them to teach you. So when someone continues to appear in your mind, despite the passing of time, despite distance, despite logic telling you it's over, what you're truly facing isn't them. It's the echo of an inner process that remains unfinished. It's a movement within your psyche, a part of your unconscious mind reaching upward, asking to be felt, asking for resolution. And here's the truth. No matter how many times you try to ignore it, suppress it, or silence it, the unconscious doesn't vanish just because you say it should. It stays, not to torment you, but to transform you. When the unconscious is ignored, it doesn't disappear. It transforms into symptoms, into looping thoughts, into emotions that seem to come out of nowhere, into choices you can't fully explain, no matter how hard you try. And it will keep showing up until you stop running from it, until you face it, until you gently integrate it into your sense of wholeness. Carl Jung believed the soul has its own kind of intelligence, one that's far older than logic, far deeper than the ticking clock of time. It doesn't speak in facts or straight lines. It speaks through symbols, through dreams, through emotionally charged moments that stay with us long after the moment has passed. So if your soul keeps returning to a certain person over and over again, it's not random. Something important happened in that connection. Something meaningful. Something that must be retrieved, not so you can go back, but so you can reclaim a part of yourself that's still waiting to be seen. That person might have been light or shadow, a source of comfort, or a wound that still aches. But either way, they were a mirror. And what matters now isn't who they were. It's what they awakened in you. But what truly matters now is no longer who they were. It's what they awakened within you. So often, we enter relationships from a place we don't even see, a quiet, invisible lack. We search for something in others that we haven't yet been able to give ourselves. And when that connection ends, it feels like something vital has been ripped away. But what really hurts isn't the person leaving. It's the emptiness they uncovered. Carl Jung believed that every loss, no matter how painful, carries within it a hidden invitation. A chance to see the emptiness not as a punishment, but as fertile ground. A sacred space where something new, something more whole, can begin to grow. But for that growth to happen, the focus must shift. You have to stop fixating on their absence and start asking, what is this absence here to teach me? This isn't about filling the space with noise or distraction. It's not about pretending you don't care. And it's not about hardening yourself just to survive. It's about the courage to go inward, to descend into that tender place where it still aches, and meet the pain with presence. Because the moment you face your pain with awareness, it begins to lose its grip. It stops running the show. It no longer gets to define who you are. Instead of letting the pain consume you, let it become a doorway, a portal to something deeper. Jung taught that it's in our moments of crisis that the soul has the greatest opportunity to expand. So if you find yourself repeatedly drawn back to someone in your mind, it may not be a sign to act outwardly, but a signal from within. A quiet inner crisis nudging you toward growth, asking you to look beneath the surface of what you think this is all about. Because not every feeling is a call to take action in the outer world. Sometimes, a feeling is an invitation to turn inward, to explore the terrain of your own history, to trace your emotional needs, to recognize the patterns in your relationships that have followed you, quietly, from one chapter to the next. You might be unconsciously reliving a bond you first knew long ago, maybe as far back as childhood. A bond formed with someone who left a lasting emotional imprint. And now, this person, the one who lingers in your thoughts, may have unknowingly reactivated that old wound. But not to confuse you. To give you another chance. To heal. And once you see this, something shifts. You stop seeing them as an obsession. You stop viewing the memory as a wound that won't close. Instead, you recognize it as a symbol carrying a message from the parts of you that have waited so long to be heard. Maybe it's the ache for validation. Maybe it's the fear that you're not enough. Maybe it's the longing to be completed by someone else. But the moment you see it, clearly, gently, without judgment, you take back your power. Because healing doesn't come from needing less. It comes from understanding why you needed so much in the first place. Because what you once believed only they could give you begins to grow from within. This is the deep work. It's not easy. It's not always comfortable. But it's profoundly transformative. It's about looking at that relationship not just for what it was, but for what it revealed about you. It's about finding meaning in the memory. It's about learning to feel gratitude, even for the pain. Because that pain lit up something inside you, something that needed healing, something that had waited far too long to be acknowledged. And when you meet it with love, when you truly begin to integrate what that experience came to show you, your energy changes. You're no longer at war with your past. You're no longer fighting your thoughts or waiting for them to vanish. Instead, you begin to embrace what is yours, the growth, the wisdom, the quiet strength that was born through that connection. You start to see the encounter not as something that broke you, but as something that birthed you. And one day, maybe sooner than you think, that person will stop showing up in your thoughts with such intensity. Not because you erased them. Not because someone else took their place. But because they no longer hold the same space within you. The memory will remain, as part of your story, as a chapter that mattered. But it will no longer sting. Because now, the story lives in peace. And so do you. One day, the thought of them will no longer disturb your peace. It won't hijack your emotions or weigh down your heart. And when that moment comes, often without warning, you will realize something profound. You've completed the cycle. Because what truly gets released isn't the person. It's the energy you unknowingly gave them. The hopes you pinned on them. The silent expectations you carried. The part of you that was still waiting for answers, for closure, for a different ending. And when that all transforms, when it softens, dissolves, integrates, what remains is peace. Not the kind you pretend to feel just to move on, but the kind that rises quietly, when you no longer need everything to make sense in order to feel okay. Jung once said, "There is no awakening of consciousness without pain." And yes, thinking constantly about someone can be painful, but it can also be a sign. A signal that you're standing at the edge of transformation. So don't run from what you feel. And whatever you do, don't punish yourself for remembering. Because remembering is not weakness. It's part of the awakening. Listen closely to what your soul is whispering through those thoughts. Because behind every emotion, there is a truth. And that truth isn't out there, in someone else's words, or actions, or approval. It has always been within you. You've walked a path that many have traveled, but few are willing to truly face. And if you're still here, if you've listened this far, it's because something deep inside you is ready. Ready to let go. Not out of forgetfulness, but from understanding. Not because you're rejecting the past, but because you're choosing love. Love for yourself. That is the closure your soul has been longing for. And when you choose to walk through this transformation, something remarkable happens. You don't just heal yourself. You become a light for others. You open a path for someone else who is quietly carrying the same weight. Because your process holds meaning, your pain has meaning. And so does your awakening. If these words touch something in you, if at any moment it felt like we were speaking directly to your soul, then I invite you to stay with us, to be part of something more. This isn't just a channel. It's a space for healing, for reflection, for truth, a place where we don't run from the pain. We learn from it. Together. This is a space for connection, for understanding, for transformation. Every time you share what you feel, every time you leave a comment that speaks your truth, every time you like or share this video, you're doing something far bigger than you realize. You're helping this message reach someone who desperately needs it. You're becoming part of a chain of light, a silent, powerful guide for someone out there who is still in the dark, still searching for clarity. Because there are people, right now, who feel exactly what you've felt. They're wrestling with the same emotions, the same questions, the same weight. But they haven't yet found the words. They're still trapped in confusion, in fear, in silence. And maybe you are the bridge. Maybe your comment, your presence here, your quiet, me too, is the sign someone else has been waiting for, to know they're not alone. This channel exists for that reason. To remind you, and anyone listening, that your emotions matter. That your inner work, your healing, your willingness to face yourself, it doesn't just change your life. It radiates outward. It inspires someone else to begin changing theirs. So thank you for being here, for being part of this, for being you. If this message touched something within you, even for a moment, let it be felt. Leave a comment, share your thoughts, tell us what this meant to you. Not because you have to, but because together we're building something real. A space for healing, for truth, for growth. Thank you for being here, for listening with your heart, for choosing to feel, to grow, to heal. This is your moment, and you're meeting it with courage. I'll see you in the next video.